Prop 19 in California and what you need to know about property taxes if you own a home and or other properties in California. So if you watch any of our videos, you've probably seen we talk about this a lot. Some of our most viewed videos, over 145,000 views for one of our videos about this, is on Prop 19. We know there's a lot of misinformation and ignorance out there. We're going to talk about legislative efforts to potentially change this, but you need to be aware of this law. It is the law in California. If you own property in California, you need to understand this in 2024. So, Mike, why don't you go through the high level summary of what Prop 19 is and what people need to know about it?
Sure. So, we're all familiar with Prop 13. The older we are, the more familiar we are with Prop 13 from the 70s. Rolled back our property taxes, pretty much froze them, only a 2% increase per year. We see people every day where they're paying $5,000 or $10,000 in annual property taxes where the house is worth $3, $4, $5, $6 million. If they were purchased today, it'd be $60,000 in taxes. So it was a dramatic change, very beneficial for for every property owner, by the way. It wasn't limited to older people. Then we had Prop 58 as another relevant point of history. And it said that you could pass along your residence to your kid or kids, regardless of whether or not they live in it, no property tax increase. Prop 58 also said that you can pass along other property, a rental, a vacation home, also to your kids, as long as the assessed total value is under $1 million. So you might have a cabin at Tahoe worth $2 million, but the assessed value is $400,000. That would also not have a property tax increase under the old law. Okay, and then comes Prop 19 and wham, all of that changed. Let's look at the two circumstances. First of all, what if it's the residence? Okay. There's been some horrific misinformation. San Jose Mercury, frankly, published 2 articles saying that if your child lives in your home, there's no property tax increase when you pass. Not true. That may be the case, but it may not be. If your child makes your residence her residence, then the first $1 million in assessed value is forgiven, which
in fair market communities, value. $1 million in fair market value is not reassessed.
Yeah, sure. So let's take a simple example. If property taxes are now $5,000 and the house is worth $3 million, if your child moves in, instead of reassessment to $3 million, it would be reassessed at $2 million, $1 million forgiven. So the property taxes would still increase to about $24,000 a year. It's still a dramatic increase. If your residence goes to your kid or kids and they don't live in it, complete reassessment. If it's worth $3 million, property taxes become about $33,000, $34,000 a year. So there's incredible misinformation and misunderstanding about this. What about that vacation home? That rent
or the rental property, more importantly, I think, that you want to support your kids. A rental property, rental or vacation property.
Vacation home, yeah. No exceptions whatsoever. So when you pass away, you have to understand what your market value is, and that's going to determine what the new level of property tax is going to be. Go to the $3 million example. It's a rental. Property taxes go from maybe $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 a year, $3 million up to $34,000, $35,000 a year, and then it's going to increase by 2% each year. It's a dramatic
We'll show an example of this in a second. Yeah, and imagine this, if you don't plan for this, and your property goes to your kids, property taxes go up by 1,000%. What if you have a rental property and it's in an area where there's rent control, which is a lot of California now? They might be in a situation where they are not allowed to raise rents, but their property taxes go up by 1,000%. What happens? Are they forced to sell? If that happens en masse, are property values going to collapse? I mean, this is something we're thinking about. We're going to talk about legislative updates, but there are attempts to make it even easier to put more rent control in right when property taxes are going to skyrocket for a lot of families. So this brings us to what I'm going to give one example here about the numbers, because we love to share this because I think it's really crucial just to see in real numbers what the impact can be. So this is a spreadsheet that we use a lot. This is the assumption here, as Mike alluded to. Let's say there's a $3.3 million home, which in lots of California isn't even that big a house. It's crazy how valuable some real estate is or how expensive real estate is. This assumes a $300,000 assessed value. And this assumes that one of your kids does live in the home after mom and dad pass away. So this gets the $1 million in protection from reassessment. But here, if we don't plan ahead, if we don't protect from this increase, we're talking about, if you see in the lower right part of this slide, over 5 years, that's an extra $114,000 in property taxes. Over 10 years, $240,000. Over 30 years, almost $900,000 in extra property taxes for one house where the child lives in it. Now, if the child is not living there, or if it's a rental property, add $10,000 a year to that. And that goes up every year by 2% too. So it's a massive, massive problem. And again, what if you have a rental property, you want to rent something out, and there's rent control? So you can't even raise rents, and your property taxes go up this much. So we have to plan ahead. So we've given, you see, I have the talk here that we gave a few months ago. It has over 100, I think at this point, 145,000 views. Watch that video to learn more if you'd like, but most importantly, meet with us. If you're worried about this and you have properties that have very low assessed values, talk to us, because we have developed solutions. Our talk here today is not focused on how we approach that, but we do have solutions. We've helped hundreds of California families to deal with this problem. There's no one size fits all solution. You have to be aware of property tax issues, capital gains tax issues, estate tax issues, but we have developed solutions. So we have the Gilfix and Lepole Dynasty LLC. Francis Lepole, our tax guru in our firm, has developed some amazing solutions. So create the future. You know, I forget the Peter Drucker quote. We're going to get back to those, but don't wait for the future to happen. Don't wait on California voters to bail you out. We'll talk about our thoughts about Prop 19 in the upcoming elections, but don't wait on voters to bail you out. If you're concerned about this, take action. We can protect that home and that rental property. Gilfix.com, easy to find us about this. We can very efficiently look into your situation and talk about solutions. Let's transition to a new law that we think you need to be aware of. You may have heard a little bit about this. It's called the 2024 Corporate Transparency Act. We're not going to spend much time on that here. We might do another talk on this. We're just studying this law now ourselves just to get a better understanding of it. If you have an entity like an LLC or a partnership, this is a new law you need to be aware of. It came into effect on January 1st, 2024. It's really intended, I think, to prevent money laundering and to prevent nefarious bad actors from hiding behind corporate veils to hide what they're doing. But this applies to LLCs, corporations, other entities. There are some exceptions here. Again, not going to get into too many details, but it requires reporting about the beneficial owners, those who own or those who control entities, to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. Among other pieces of information, you have to give names, dates of birth, addresses, social security numbers. There's actually a website they've set up to submit some of this information. And there are major penalties for not complying. So if you already set up, I'll talk about the deadlines momentarily, but if you've already set up entities, and we've helped some of our clients set up entities, we'll be helping them. If you've already set up entities, you need to be aware of this. You need to file this information soon. And if you file a new entity in the future, you're going to need to be aware of this. And as we've talked about before, when we're doing estate tax planning, we often will use entities. There are partnerships or LLCs for estate tax planning. And sometimes we'll use that for property tax planning. This is just another step that we have to take. You just need to be aware of it, because if you don't file this information, the penalties are very strict. There's even criminal penalties. You might be in jail. I don't think that'll happen very often, but someone they're going to make an example out of at some point. So what are the deadlines for the Corporate Transparency Act? Well, if you create an entity before January 1st, 2024, you have a year. So we have until the end of 2024 to file that information. If you create a new entity after January 1st of 2024, you have 90 days to enter that information. So if you create a new entity, you have 90 days to report this information. So just be aware of it. If you work with us on creating entities, we're going to be working with you to help make sure that this is all reported. But for those of you out there who have entities, be aware of this. There's going to be new rules, I'm sure, emerging about how exactly you file this information. But just be aware of this new act, Corporate Transparency Act in 2024. So very easy to find us. Subscribe to our Gilfix Law YouTube channel for more videos. But we'd, of course, welcome you, if you're not already a client, to join our client community. Easy to find us, 650-493-8070, gilfix.com /contact, or a number of ways to find us there. Thank you for spending time with us. We know time is so valuable. Attention is so valuable. It is a scary world out there, but I hope you and your family, as my mom likes to say, are staying safe, sane, and healthy. And thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We'll see you next time.